Istanbul Vinaka. Ladies and gentlemen, and Chair, USB Vice Chancellor and President.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here at USP and to see so many of you here. It's a great privilege to be here as the Australian Prime Minister and to bring the greetings and the kind affections from the Australian people to all of you. Can I start by saying Vinaka to Professor Pal Alawalia for his very warm welcome earlier and congratulate him on his new role as Vice-Chancellor. Professor, I know you'll do a tremendous job leading this very important and prestigious institution. I'd also like to acknowledge the sterling efforts of Professor Rajesh Chandra, both to this university and to the Pacific during his decade-long tenure as Vice-Chancellor. To the only Honourable Rosie Akbar, the Minister for Education, Heritage and the Arts, it's a pleasure to meet you here today and thank you also for your welcome. To Mr Winston Thompson, the Pro-Chancellor of the University of the South Pacific, as well as my colleagues who join me here from Australia, the Senator Anne Ruston, the Assistant Minister for International Development and the Pacific, and the High Commissioner, John Feeks. And can I congratulate you again, John, on the tremendous job you've been doing here representing us as our High Commissioner. I've given plenty of speeches in universities in my time, but never as garlanded as like this. I think it's quite good. But it's all part of the welcome, and I think the culture of respect that is so evident in Pacific cultures all around our region. It's fair to say that there's a lot of affection here today, and I appreciate that very much. And I understand that's an affection for Australia, while Jenny and I have greatly appreciated the very warm personal welcomes we've had since we've been here. What we understand, and all of my delegation understand, that is a reflection of the affection and the kindness and the warmth that is extended from the peoples of Fiji to Australia and our people. We're more than neighbours, we're more than partners. As Prime Minister Bainimarama and I have said on each of our discussions so far, we are family, we are Vuvali. And this principle of Vuvali is something we feel very deeply about. It's a different kind of relationship. Australia has many relationships all around the world, and they come by many different names. Some of them are spoken in that special language of diplomacy, which diplomats understand, and the rest of us sort of shake our heads, I suppose. But to talk about Vuvali is to go beyond diplomacy. It's to talk about something deep and something rich, something that's very local, something that's very home, and something which I think connects peoples more than any words or any documents can. And when you see yourselves as family, a relationship moves beyond a shallow transactional lens. Our relationships, what we do as countries, can't just be the sum of our transactions and our deals any more than our engagements with each other are the sum of deals, transactions. They extend far more than that, and we need to look at them far more than that. And our government is doing exactly that as we look out into the Pacific and particularly here in Fiji. Because when we see things, I think in a very transactional way, we sell ourselves short and we sell our opportunities short. So it's an approach, Vuvali, in the Pacific that I intend to follow, and our government intends to follow, and Australia intends to follow, because we believe that is the way that we'll have the deepest and richest of relationships. Because it will reflect our character and our values. Now, it's true that Australia and Fiji, as we are tied also by our geography and our history, and for many years our coins even pointed to a shared history as they pointed to a shared crown. Evidence of the confluence of our early histories as nations on different trajectories when it comes to those issues today, but when you share those beginnings as nations, when you share the beginnings of colonisation and these issues, there is an understanding, there's an appreciation that I think whether it's Australia or New Zealand can have with the Pacific nations, and particularly Fiji, that many others will struggle to understand. But we've lived it, so we get it. And I think that provides for a very open and honest and very meaningful dialogue and conversation. Every day, new stories are being created about the connections that are being forged between us. There are thousands of them. They happen on our sports fields, in our churches, in our schools, and indeed in our universities. They emerge between our defence and our police forces, our businesses. They're great stories of human connectedness, which is why we're so committed. I've seen firsthand the enormous potential here in Fiji over a long period of time, and I very much welcome the vibrancy of the economy here. 9 years of uninterrupted economic growth bear testament to this, and is a credit to all of those who've been able to achieve it, whether through the leadership of the government and their policies, or indeed the hard-working people of Fiji every single day, going out there, running businesses, working hard, values of work, respect, delivering an important dividend for Fiji and indeed for our region. A relatively small country, but a big country in many other ways, with a diverse and dynamic tourism sector, a country that has produced iconic global brands like Kuko and Fiji Water. I've experienced the talent, the generosity and the energy of the Fijian people. And of course, I suppose particularly our rugby players don't want to see too much of that energy on September 21 when the Flying Fijians meet the Wallabies in the opening round of the Rugby World Cup. But somehow I suspect we will. And it will be a great contest as always. I saw some of the boys down on the rugby league side of things this morning. And of course we can't forget the fine young men and women who serve alongside Australians as part of our Australian Defence Forces. And 3 of them are Patisha Matalao, Tavita Vulu and Apeta Turava, proudly returned to Fiji as part of the Australian Navy HMS Canberra Relief Operation Team assigned to help in Coral Island during 2016 Cyclone Winston. Fiji's leadership role in the region is welcome and it is understood. Fiji has earned respect for its decades-long commitment to UN peacekeeping operations in some of the most dangerous parts of the world. And let me place on record my deep appreciation and that of Australia for the sacrifice of Fijians in keeping the peace around the world. More than 50 Fijians have lost their lives, sacrificed their lives, serving in US peacekeeping missions all around the world. And yesterday, my wife Jenny and I went and paid tribute to them, not only to them, but also the lives lost in the First and Second World Wars in Malaya and other places. But I must admit I was struck by just how many and how great a price has been paid by Fiji for serving the cause of peace with the UN. That is something that should be deeply respected by all nations who form part of the UN and by the United Nations themselves. Fijians have paid a great price. They deserve great respect, and that is certainly the position that Australia holds. I know it's a relationship worth nurturing, and the same goes for all nations in our Pacific family, and that's reciprocated. And that's what we're doing, playing our part in a region to secure its strategic place in the world, a stable economy, sovereignty, independence. I saw this firsthand when Prime Minister O'Neill, as chair of APEC, drew together the leaders of Pacific nations from right across this region and to hear their clear and articulate voice advocating the outlook of the Pacific peoples. It's a voice we need to hear and pay attention to. So here I'm tending to voice my commitment and that of my government to listen and to hear all of you. It's fitting that I'm doing it here at this remarkable university, which is owned by the governments of 12 island nations, proud nations, and has locations in all of them. The University of the South Pacific understands respect, equality, and openness. Indeed, it thrives because of all of these things. There is a unity of purpose, whether it's here in Suva or in Port Vila, where I was earlier in the week, at Te Tafu in Tokelau, or any of the other 11 campuses. We need to take that spirit and apply it to the leadership of our region, as indeed USP is raising up the leaders of Pacific nations in so many roles, in business, in politics, in sport, in culture, in family. An important job. But there are many challenges, global challenges, confronting us. And I say us, not you, because we live here. Australia is not a remote observer of the Pacific. It is our home also. And we've got a stake in what happens here. So we stand with you as we look to those challenges, and we know to succeed we must work together. Climate change is one of those challenges, and it is an important priority for the Pacific and for Australia. We recognise this and the need for global action, and we have a role to play and a responsibility, and we are playing it. If there is anything that Australians should be known for, and I believe are known for, is that when we make commitments, we stick to them. And we have made commitments in the area of climate change, and we are keeping them, and we will keep them, and we will stick to them, and we will add to them, and we will do that particularly here in the Pacific. We remain firmly committed to our international agreements and the targets we've committed to under those agreements. We've committed to reduce emissions by 26 to 28% below 2005 levels by 2030. This is an ambitious target, but we will meet it, as we have met Kyoto 1, as we will meet Kyoto 2, and indeed, as I've said on many occasions, we will meet our 2030 targets in a canter also, because we will do what is necessary to meet them. But as we have shown through those earlier protocols, when Australia makes those commitments, we have a track record of getting there. And we have helped amplify the voice of the Pacific in critical climate talks, as indeed occurred at the recent APEC meeting in Port Moresby. And I particularly want to commend Prime Minister Bainimarama for his role in Fiji's presidency of COP23, where you were instrumental in guiding the world's progress on the rule book underpinning the agreement. And just over a month ago at COP24, the hard work paid off with an agreement reached on that very rule book. We now have a common platform for all countries to account for their commitments, and this will guide global climate action for years to come. And Fiji's leadership was critical to this outcome, and it would not have been possible without Prime Minister Bainimarama's drive and energy. He's a forceful advocate. I'm sure you all know that. Australia's commitment to the agreement sits alongside our efforts across the Pacific to respond to and address climate change with our family partners. We have already committed $300 million on climate and disaster resilience support for the Pacific, more than $200 million of which has already been delivered. And in Fiji, Australia has spent $13 million on climate-related activities over the last 2 years alone, from the reconstruction of health and education facilities following Cyclone Winston to building climate-related skills and knowledge through Australia Award scholarships. This work will continue well into the future, but it will continue directly and in partnership with our Pacific neighbours and friends and family. So climate change is a significant challenge and an important priority, both for us as Australians and for us as a region, and I know that is shared with Fiji. But there are other challenges we must work together on as well. Oceans management is another. We have done well to date. The Pacific Ocean is one of the best managed oceans in the world, the Great Blue. In fact, you could even say it's the best managed. That's a credit to all who call our blue Pacific home. We're a blueprint for the world, no pun intended, by the way. And that's because we have the right architecture in place and we're taking the right action, must do more. For instance, Australia is working with the Forum Fisheries Agency to maximise economic benefits from the tuna fisheries for Pacific Island countries. We're also working with the Secretariat for the Pacific Regional Environment Program to support marine conservation. And we proudly support the Office of the Pacific Ocean Commissioner in its role strengthening regional oceans governance. Australia's interest is not commercial, never has been. Our only interest has been to support the region and maximise incomes for Pacific countries that come from your resources in a stable way. Fisheries in the Pacific is not unlike resources and mining in Australia, and they both have to be sensitively managed for the future prosperity and sustainability of those sectors and for our economies and for our environment. So we'll do that by working in partnership. Now, beyond climate change and oceans, the years ahead will see us confront continued uncertainty around the global economy and trade. We are very alert to this uncertainty, and as a former treasurer, having dealt in many of the international forums, whether it's G20 or others, as we face 2019, the global economy is a much more uncertain place than it was 12 months ago. And 12 months ago, you wouldn't say it was the most certain of all time. And so we do face a troubled global environment, whether it's the trade tensions we see between the great powers or what we've been seeing more recently in Europe and Great Britain. These are interesting times, and they do require careful economic management to secure the prosperity of our people, because it is a strong economy, and only a strong economy, that you can rely on to ensure that the health services and the other important social services that are provided throughout the Pacific and at home in Australia can be delivered. Economic management is a necessity. It's not a luxury. It's not an add-on. It's the centre and most important challenge of governments. We're alive to this, and that's why we're focused on putting the P into APEC and make sure our region's voice is heard loud and clear as it was most recently. And why we're pushing for the ratification of PACER Plus. Australia ratified it at the end of last year, and Fiji will make up its own mind. I think it's a good deal. It's a good deal. Commend it to you. A regional trade agreement that will open new markets and economic opportunities for the Pacific. PACER Plus will be a better and stronger regional agreement with Fiji in it. We see Fiji very much as an economic hub in our region. Every deal is better with Fiji in it, in the Pacific, for the leadership role that Fiji plays. And I welcome and thank Prime Minister Bainimarama and his cabinet for the discussions we had on this yesterday. And as I announced yesterday, we're undertaking a new joint study on both the trade and economic impacts of these arrangements to further pursue those discussions in the weeks and months and ahead to assist, facilitate, I think, a good outcome in that area. But we'll do it by partnership. We'll do it with patience. We'll do it with respect and dialogue. I would like to say also that the human rights and supporting the equal participation of Pacific men and women is also important to our collective future. And I congratulate Fiji on your election to the UN Human Rights Council. As the first two members to serve on the Council from our region, I look forward to Australia and Fiji working together to elevate Pacific issues on the Council's agenda. Now let me turn to that new chapter I talked about, the Vivali chapter in our relationship here in the Pacific. I've returned the Pacific in Australia's outlook to where it always should have been, front and centre of Australia's strategic outlook and foreign policy. This new chapter, our Pacific Step Up, as I've termed it, is genuine, it's authentic, it's fair dinkum, as I would say. And it's based on respect, equality, and on openness. It doesn't mean we always agree. I think this is one of the important principles of Vivali. Hands up those families in which everybody agrees all the time. Not many hands. But, you know, the principle of Vivali is that families stay together. And they stay at the table, as Prime Minister Bainimarama said yesterday. And they continue to work together. And they put family first. And that's how we will work together in this new relationship. And if you're going to step up, you've got to show up, as I've said in these recent days. And here we are, showing up. And the Assistant Minister, Anne Ruston, will be showing up. Our officials, the High Commission, they'll be showing up. In weeks to come, there are more senior officials who will be coming and working through various issues, whether it's on education, whether it's in culture or sport, or the economy or security, all of these areas. In 1990, the then Interim Prime Minister, Ratu Kamasisi-Mara, said that Australia and Fiji had a very strong relationship that bends. It may bend, but it may not break. I would say it does bend, and it must not break. And we have a responsibility. They were very wise words. So when we disagree as equals, with candour and respect, as family does. Your Prime Minister and I have each other's mobile number. We text each other. We talk about our families. We'll talk about football, I'm sure. And it is a very warm relationship. And when we pick up the phone, when we have differences, we have a chat and we talk them through. The days of take it or leave it are over when it comes to resolving issues. It's not my style. It's not Australia's style. It's not Fiji's style. So this truly is a new chapter. In keeping with our commitment to the Pacific last year, I announced a package of measures to deepen our engagement with the Pacific. One of our most important new initiatives is the joint redevelopment of the Black Rock Peacekeeping and Humanitarian Assistance and Disaster Relief Camp into a regional hub for police and peacekeeping training and pre-deployment preparation. It's an important project, and later today I'll be travelling to Nadi to break new ground and mark the start of construction. Australia is also cooperating to develop the PNG Defence Force's Lombrum Naval Base on Manus Island, a move that will improve the interoperability between our defence forces and deepen region maritime security operation. In Vanuatu, Australia is providing support to the police force so it can train more than 300 new recruits and pursue other policing priorities, and I was there to open their college earlier in the week. On the economic front, I have announced two major initiatives. The first was the Australian Infrastructure Financing Facility for the Pacific, a $2 billion infrastructure initiative to significantly boost Australia's support for infrastructure development in Pacific countries. And just yesterday, when we spoke with the Prime Minister, we have put the Nandi River project as one that we would very much like to progress and discuss further, and we're looking forward to those discussions. It will be a very important project, I believe, for Fiji's future prosperity. It will use grant funding, this $2 billion infrastructure initiative, working together with longer-term responsible and sustainable loans to support high-priority infrastructure in areas like energy, transport and water. In addition to that fund, there is also the announcement regarding the Australian Export Financing Agency, EFIC, with $1 billion extra in callable capital and increased flexibility to support investments in the Pacific. EFIC has always played an important role. It was announced as part of this package from the outset to work together with the new measures that we have announced as well. Australia's diplomatic footprint is also changing. We're extending our diplomatic presence to every Pacific Island Forum member. And over the next few years, we'll work with countries to establish 5 new diplomatic missions in the Cook Islands, French Polynesia, Niue, Palau and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. These missions and the ones already established across the Pacific will boast Australia's best and brightest diplomats with the skills, the energy and the dedication to move our relationship forward. We are going to clone John Feeks in a special laboratory in the University of South Pacific. We have outstanding people who work for the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in our missions across the South Pacific. You know John, but John and his male and female counterparts around the region are also well respected, as you know, and would have come across them in various parts of your work. So together with the ones already established across the Pacific, we will have that infrastructure in place. We're also creating a dedicated office of the Pacific within the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to give a loud and authoritative voice, with my backing, to be working within our Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And following my commitments to step up our Pacific engagement, the office will drive the implementation, not just from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, but from a whole of government perspective. Countries will continue to engage, no doubt, and essentially with each of the individual departments and agencies of the Australian government. But there will be a champion sitting within government, which is the Office of the Pacific, and I'm pleased to announce, and he's with us today, that that office will be headed by Ewan MacDonald, whom the government has asked to return early from his current position as High Commissioner of New Zealand, where he's been doing an outstanding job, with accreditation also to the Cook Islands and Niue, to take up this important role. And Mr MacDonald has engaged closely with Pacific counterparts on foreign policy, development and humanitarian issues, and has worked hard to ensure Pacific perspectives are heard in international bodies, including the UN. He will build on this even further in this new position, and I commend you on his appointment, and I thank him very much for taking up the role. There are practical steps that will make a difference in the Pacific, and yesterday also Australia and Fiji took further steps forward in our relationship. They were historic, they were win-win, they were Vivali. That agreement, the Australia for Fiji Vivali Partnership Agreement, will now be negotiated by officials in coming months, and we look forward to signing it when we welcome Prime Minister Bainimarama to Australia as our official guest later this year. And we also found a lot of common ground, as you expect, with our shared interests and values, and reached agreements across several other areas. We agreed to hold more regular ministerial and high-level meetings and exchanges to explore new opportunities and discuss challenges. We agreed to continue to strengthen our defence and security cooperation. And we agreed to deepen our trade and investment relationship and explore future opportunities. We welcomed Fiji into the Pacific Medicines Testing Program, and we committed to immediately start work on Fiji's entry into the Pacific Labour Scheme later this year. And no doubt we will continue to work on a relationship to ensure we can compete in the sporting field, but also building capability for Fiji there. We have seen wonderful success with the Fiji Drua, who have had in the National Rugby Championship, winning the grand final in the competition's second year. So with that in mind, Australia will fund the NRL pre-season trial matches in the Pacific in the 2020, 21 and 22, and will support team travel costs for Fiji to compete in the New South Wales Rugby League Intrust Super Premiership in 2020, which I announced this morning. Netball Australia will receive funding so it can help the Fijian national team prepare for the Netball World Cup later this year. Now, before I finish, you'll be pleased to know it's almost done. I'd like to add one more thing to the measures I've listed. Today I announce a new partnership between Australia and the University of South Pacific. It was worth waiting for. $84 million over the next 6 years. We do this because it matters and it counts and you get results. USP has a unique role in developing the skills needed to drive the region's development and economic growth long into the future. Last year, USP, as you noted earlier, celebrated its 50th anniversary. So did I, by the way. This is a remarkable achievement, not for me, but for the USP. And Australia is proud to have been associated with USP over the longer term. This agreement will see Australia support efforts to invest in the young people of our region, passionate people, vibrant people, intelligent people, through the focus on improving the quality of teacher education and through the education of students at the tertiary level in fields such as economics, human resource management and tourism management. It will also promote greater linkages between the USP and Australia's tertiary education sector. These resources will enable USP to fulfil its bold mission to make higher education accessible around the region by making university more affordable for young Pacific students. It will also enable USP to lead research of the region in the region and to showcase Pacific heritage and talent worldwide, like the wonderful performance we have just been able to experience in our time here. One of the great qualities that Australians admire in Fijians is they have a great sense of what matters in life. Family, relationships, community, faith, being connected at home and caring for your environment of home. I have learnt much from Fijians over a long period of time and from Fiji. Australians have learnt much. We have learnt much from each other. We're deeply connected. We're there for each other when things are tough and when things are great. That's why I'm confident together we can make our region and all of our communities stronger and more prosperous, one another, I would say. A common effort, united leadership and purpose. So Vinaka Vapalevu, everyone, for coming today, and to the University of the South Pacific for being such a generous host and a fine institution. Pula Vinaka.
Thank you very much, Mr. Winston Thompson, the Pro-Chancellor and Chair of the USB Council. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the conclusion of our program, and we thank you all sincerely